Good afternoon, dear Stitchers. It's Judy Whitman with JBW Designs, and I want to welcome you back to my Flosstube channel. This is number 71. It is Friday, January 5th, and I am so grateful that you are taking the time to watch and to write and send emails. It has you have so enriched my life with your messages, so thank you so much. So I have a funny story to tell you. First of all, I haven't recorded for 3 weeks, and I'll tell you about why. Of course, Christmas was in there and other little events going on. But last time when I recorded, my grandson Liam got quite a kick out of this because I said, "Oh, it's Friday the 13th, and I don't worry about the, superstitions of Friday the 13th." It wasn't Friday the 13th at all. It was the 15th of December. So we got quite a chuckle about that one. I remember glancing over at my calendar before I started to see what the date was, and I obviously didn't read it correctly, so that's okay. So a lot has happened since I saw you 3 weeks ago, and you can tell from my blouse, everything looks either pink or red. And there's a reason for that. That's my theme for today. So I told you all in the last video that our grandson and his wife, Wyatt and Kylie, were expecting a baby on Christmas. And so we carefully, laid out plans to have Christmas a week early on the 19th of December. And I remember saying to people ahead of time, babies don't really know what's on the calendar, and they can come at any time. Well, guess what? Baby Nevaeh was born on December 19th, and I'm going to show you a picture of her. She is so precious. She only weighed 7 pounds. She ended up with a lung infection, so she had to stay in the hospital, or they all did for, excuse me. I better get my tea here before I choke talking to you. So she had to stay in the hospital for 6 days. And they're being very careful about who comes to see her on the advice of their doctors. So we saw her, I think it was a week after Christmas. And oh my gosh, it's been so long since we've had a baby in the family. So I was trying to figure out how to show you a photo. And I'm going to use my iPad today. So here's little baby Nevaeh. And then I have another picture to show you if I can get to the right screen. Let's see here. I want to have her eyes open. Whoops. So this is a picture of Wyatt and Kylie with their little baby girl. So it's very exciting. We're all trying to figure out what our names are, what we'll be called. I'm called Nana with my grandchildren, and I came up with the idea of great-grandchildren calling me Nana. I don't know if that will stick, but we'll see. So that was our exciting news in December. And so because of that, we have, I hope you don't mind the family updates here, we have several grandchildren with birthdays in December, and I had cooked the day before, the 19th, getting ready for our celebration, and then of course it didn't happen. So I started rethinking what we should do, and decided, because the next day was our granddaughter Ellie's birthday and Liam's birthday was a week later, that we would get together and celebrate 2 birthdays. So we did that on the 20th, and then we had our Christmas celebration on the 25th. It was kind of brief because it was at the end of the day, and having Christmas on Monday is kind of strange because people had to go back to work the next day. But we had fun nonetheless, and we've gotten together a couple times this month, and I feel so lucky about that. So my first thought is today that I want to show you some of the mail that I received in the last couple weeks, because I always love the cards that people send are just so delightful. This actually is so similar to that free little stocking design that I designed. This is from Merritt Crawford, my friend in Ohio, who we've gotten together a couple times, and she does videos also. I will link those people that I mentioned below. And then this is just a gorgeous card. I mentioned this gal before, and you probably watch her already. Her name is Nicole Spohr, S-P-O-H-R, and she does beautiful videos. And she started out, I believe, as a paper crafter. Look at this card she sent. I just thought it was gorgeous, and she wrote the sweetest note inside. So thank you, Nicole. And then I got a beautiful card from my friend Catherine out in California. So I'm anxious to talk to her again. It has a wonderful message. Christmas reminds us the best gifts in life are family, friendships, laughter, and love. And that's so true. And I know for some people, Christmas can be very, very hard. You've lost someone, you're alone. And I really always want to recognize that it's not always as fun as we'd like to think it could be. This was a sweet postcard. I thought this was adorable. And this was from Sarah. And she lives in California. Thank you, Sarah. And then I received a card from Teresa of Jersey Girl Stitch Company. And she sent a card of her family. Thank you, Teresa. It's always fun to in a sweet note to hear your notes. And then another card from my friend Maureen. So it was fun. It was great to get mail. And now I have to remember to make all the links that I talked about in my notes below. So I want to show you, I want to start out today with some beautiful things that people have posted on my Friends of JBW Designs Facebook page. And the reason I have that page is I'm hoping that people who stitch my designs will post pictures, and they've been doing it, it's great, of some of the, and setting things aside while I talk to you, of some of the things that they've stitched, and especially when they've changed the colors or done a unique finishing method. We all love to see that. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 or 4 today that appeared. So the first one, I don't have a picture of her finished work. Let me look at my notes as to see if I have this right. Oh, nope, I don't. This goes with something else. So let me backtrack on that. So I'm sorry about that. So Jean Lee of the Attic worked my design, and I forgot to pull the chart, called Oh Christmas Tree. And she did it on an Aztec red linen on a 40 count over 1, and it turned out to be like this big. It was just beautiful. It may be on Jean's Instagram page, so you'll have to check that out. So then 2 people actually wrote to me in just the last week here. Let's see, this was Linda and Carol. And one of them, Carol had finished the Bluebird of Happiness sampler, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then Laura is going to start this sampler as her blessing sampler for January. And I don't know if you've all heard about this, but I believe it was started some time ago by GGR, and she would release a design and she would encourage people to stitch that and finish it in January, and then you would have blessings in your life. So let's see, I have the book here because I want to talk about that in a minute, and many of you have seen this before. So I was so delighted to hear that she was starting that as her blessing sampler. And then I also got a note from, let's see, from Trisha. Look at the picture she took. I mean, just her vignette is gorgeous. So she stitched a kit that I released a year ago, and I'm going to show you the kit. It's called Lina's Pinkeet Pillow. And it included all the backings and the velvet, etc. from Lady Dot Creates. But she finished it a little bit differently. You can go to my site to look at it. So she used the rickrack alongside each side of this, added quite a few buttons below the design. I just love the way that turned out. So thank you, Tricia, for posting that. And then this one, I'm always amazed when people do such a beautiful collection. This was from Anne. And she stitched and finished all these ornaments for a small tree at Christmas time. I was very impressed. It's just beautiful. And then I have another picture to show you, and it's from an Instagram person whose name is Jo Florence, and she has the most I'm not sure where Jo lives. Maybe somebody can tell me. Teresa might know. I think she might live overseas, but her photographs of her finished work are just so impressive. And so she sent me this on my friend's page, because way back here she had stitched the Birds and Berries sampler, and I was so delighted to see that she had stitched that. So I'll show you that model in a little while, because it's part of my pink and red theme today. So I have another couple of pictures to show you. So one thing that I do on my friend's page is I have a contest. I'm afraid that it might get to the point where it's getting out of control, because the last contest I posted, I'll show you the designs in a minute, there are so many who voted, that's the whole purpose of it. I want to read what your favorite is. I post 3 designs, but now it's getting harder and harder to tabulate this to figure out who the winner is. So anyhow, I'll figure it out. I'm sure I will, and I do read your comments. So this time I decided to choose 3 of my in the round designs. And I have quite a few of these. So I asked my viewers if a rabbit's in the round was one of their favorites, or kitties in the round, or doggies in the round. So it will be very interesting to see which one won. These are so much fun to design, because when I'm designing them, I actually go back and look at my books with antique samplers, and I try to find those motifs and incorporate antique sampler motifs of the theme into that round design. So as I've said before, it's like putting a little puzzle together. And here's the little kitties. So that's the contest this week, or it was a couple weeks ago. I'll get around to tabulating soon, and this was the picture that I posted. So let's keep moving on with my topics for today. I always have to look at my notes. You will be surprised that, and you might have seen this, that I myself, so many Flosstubers show all these beautiful designs they've finished. Well, I can show you the models that I stitched for my designs, but I don't very often take time to stitch something just for myself. Now this was a project, let's see if I can find, where did I put? Here it is, okay. Rarely do I take the time to stitch for myself, but I fell in love with this design. I've shown you this partially before, but I finished it. I'm just so happy. I can't wait to get it framed. It's absolutely huge. I have an idea of where it's going to go in my office, but I'm going to have to rearrange a whole wall of samplers to get this to fit. But so I want to talk to you about this pattern. So I'm going to lay it down, and I'll show you in a bit some of the small changes that I made. The pattern itself, actually Jean from the attic carries a lot of the GGR patterns, is part of her series. I'll show you the front page, because it's all separate pages that GGR has, and it's called, oh, you don't want me to pronounce French, so it's Les Belles Letters of Gigi. And so she doesn't have all the letters in the alphabet, and I had to search quite a bit to find the J, but I so enjoyed working this sampler. It was, this monogram in the center to me is just spectacular. So what did I stitch it on? And actually I posted something incorrect on Instagram, so I'll try to correct it. So I stitched it, sorry, here I'm kind of fluffing around getting this ready, on a 40 count Newcastle cream linen. And believe it or not, I stitched it in DMC. And several people have asked, what red did you use? And I actually used 150, which has kind of a pink cast to it, but I don't know, I love it. I love how it turned out, and I'm going to show you. And yes, I did make mistakes in it. I think that's probably very common in a design of this size with the spacing, but I use what shall I say, the rule kind of don't go backwards when you're stitching, always go forward. So in this design, the chart is very large, and it's in, I can't show you that, but it's in separate pieces. And so what I ended up doing was taping sections together so that I could see how it went from one section to another. You know, that can be quite tricky. So I'm going to, I know you're not supposed to show charts. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to tell you about it. So in this section right here, it originally said ABC, and there was a duck there. And somehow the duck just did not fit to me with the rest of the patterns. So I ended up modifying it a little bit. So I did my initials, I did a heart, and then I used the border that was on the original design. So anyhow, that's my glorious finish. I finished it right at the end of 2023. Oh, there's one more thing I want to tell you about it. I hope you're stitching and having a cup of tea and just getting a lot done. So one of the things I noticed when I was stitching this design, I'm going to hold this up again one more time, is that Gigi had initials kind of scattered all throughout the piece. And I thought, and I decided not to stitch the ones that were charted, because what I did is I just made a list of all my immediate family members. So I have the initials of my husband. I don't think, well, JBW, I have that, but I didn't do a J. There's plenty of J's in here. So my husband, my two children, our 6 grandchildren, I put Nevaeh's initial in here. And I just scattered them in my son and daughter's partners. So I just scattered initials. You can see an M and a K and a C and an L and a W all throughout this piece. And I like that because to me it kind of personalizes what you've done. And so what I did is I went in, you know, I have many sampler collection booklets. I'll show you one later. But I just went through my sampler collection booklets and I found an alphabet. It had to be fairly small. I think it's only 9 high. And this was from the Star Sampler. I think this might be in the American Sampler book. I will look that up for you. So I just had a little alphabet right here that was tiny that would fit in there. So I used one of these alphabets from an antique sampler to insert into that design. That was a long description. I'm sorry it took so long for me to describe it, but it's very exciting to have a finish like that. And now I have to figure out, what am I going to do next? Actually, I have an idea. I've seen a piece. It's again very, very large, so it's going to be a multi-year project. But I'm thinking I might order that today and just, when I can, get a small start on it. So once I do that, I'll let you know what I chose. So let's move on. My topic of the day today is a review of my releases in 2023. And it's always interesting as a designer. We're very focused, I think. We're always thinking about when is the next show going to be. I only release usually 3 times a year. I usually do, of course, a release for Nashville, which is coming up at the end of February, I do release new designs at the end of August for our online show. And then if I can squeeze something in, I try to release 1 or 2 in June. So it's always, I think, good for us to look back at what we have accomplished in a way. And I have one more thing I want to tell you before I get into the books that I published in 23. So I'm going to go backwards for 1 minute. So after Christmas was over, I don't know about you, but I wasn't sure. You know, you feel a little lost. You're so focused, and then, okay, now what am I going to do? I always have work to do. But I went into one of my closets, and I was looking for fabric to send to one of my finishers. And so I'm going through this enormous fabric bins, and I'm thinking, this is a royal mess. And so I start sorting them by color, which is how often I choose the fabrics that I need for my finishes. So I finished sorting that bin, and in this room, which is my office, it's a large room over our garage, and it's on the upstairs of our house. We have 2 other bedrooms down the hallway. And in this room, I have a closet that's used for packing and shipping, and that's on the left over there. And then across from that, I have a fairly good-sized closet that I use for stock and my fabrics and fibers. That too can be a royal mess if I don't clean it up. So anyhow, I started with the fabric, and then I fell down the rabbit hole of trying to organize that closet. I had been accumulating things in there for years. And so I spent that afternoon organizing the whole closet. And then that led me down to the basement, where there are lots of bins down there. So it was days and days of, working on the Christmas bins, the bins in the basement, bins for the show, my closets up here. I never got to clothing or kitchen or bathrooms, but it feels really good. So I did hopefully get back to, at least to start the new year in an organized fashion. So what did I release this year? Well, or last year. It was a fabulous year. It started out in January, because I taught, I've told you probably many times, at Keepsakes in Ohio at their event called Stitch Away. And I was the guest designer there, and Barbara, the owner of Keepsakes, asked me to design something that would be a surprise for all the attendees. So the piece that I designed for that event, is the Bluebird of Happiness. And this is what the model looks like. And it was so much fun to design. It was actually based, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, on an antique sampler that I bought that had just these 2 bird motifs in it. So I used that as the starting point for designing this piece. And the phrase on it reads, "May the Bluebird of Happiness always reside within you." And so this actually turned out to be the #1 bestseller of the year, which was just amazing. I mean, Barbara and I were stunned because she had exclusive rights. She still carries the booklet, incidentally. She had exclusive rights to the booklet for about 6 months, and every few weeks she'd place another order. So you never know as a designer what is going to capture the imagination of stitchers. So this is what the booklet looks like. I'm going to have to look it up to see what did I stitch it on. I stitched it on a 32 count R&R linen in French vanilla, and it uses a variety of hand-dyed fibers, but I give DMC equivalents. And then in this booklet also were 4 other small designs that I took out of this large one that are smalls and with directions. Let's see, I can see if I can show you. I'm not showing you a chart. So I took designs and made just little tiny. There's a pillow, a tiny pin pillow in here. There's a pin keep. There's a needle book, and there's a scissor fob. So all of those are in the Bluebird of Happiness booklet. So that was the first thing I released last year. And then the next 6 that I'm going to show you were released at the Nashville market. So I'm not going to show you models for all of them, but I will show you the books, and I pulled out several models. So this was called the American Marking Sampler. And it is a collection of antique samplers that I own, and they're all fall into that category of samplers that little girls would have done to learn their alphabets, to mark the linens that were in their homes. There are 6 designs in this booklet, and when possible, I did as much research as I could. I'll try to show you larger views of them. When I had the name and the date of when it was stitched. And these marking samplers were from 1787 to 1882. And so that was really a fun one to release. And then the next one that I want to grab was probably my next bestseller. And again, this was based on part of an antique sampler that I bought a year ago at a show in Allegan. And it was quite a large sampler. It had many motifs on it. I really didn't want to reproduce the whole thing, so I did the birds, which just turned out so beautifully. This is framed. I'll try to remember. I should take notes while I'm writing to put in who my framer is on this one too. So it's L&M Framing in Ohio, but I'll write that below. So anyhow, this was probably the second bestseller. People seemed to love it. There were actually quite a few stitch-alongs with this piece, so that was fun. And then, let's see, do I have that here in my pile? I hope so. So then I took several other motifs out of the Eliza's bird sampler, and I took 3 of them and made them into smalls. So these motifs were all in that sampler that I talked about that was an antique. And let's see if I can show you. It's always tricky without showing you the chart. All right, so there's a tiny little pin pillow, and there is also, oh, very awkward, a little pin keep. Not a pin keep, I'm sorry, a scissor paw. So that was another release at market. Eliza's French Birds. That's what that one looks like. The next one that I released, I'm going to have to grab it. I have many things on my table here, and I'm going to have to figure out, we always have to figure out how to sort it all. So this was another one that was released at market. It's called A Joyful Purpose. And once again, I took many little motifs from antique samplers, the borders, the birds, the basket of flowers. And then the phrase that I used in this piece was one that I found in a Pennsylvania German sampler book that I own. And it reads, "Joy and work for labors all, make the work and effort small." And I'm going to lay this down so I can show you the booklet and talk about the colors and the fabric. So this was stitched on, let's see if I hold it like this, on a 36 count winter moon over 2 threads. And the colors, I think there are just 2 colors in here, yes. So I used a dark raspberry and a medium salmon color, and they were both DMCs. So it was 3350 and 3731. So that was A Joyful Purpose, and that was released last year. All right, the next one on the list is one that I don't have the model up here for, but another round design. This is Stitching in the Round. Did I pull that? Let me look. Nope, I pulled something different. This was stitched over 2, and let's see, it was also, I also took one of the motifs and just did a little scissor fob. I also did it as the lid of a wooden box which I love that finish. I showed that, I think, in my last video. So Stitching in the Round also came out last year. Lina's Kit, which I've shown you already. The Ornament Collection V book was released in June, and this has done very well. I've actually been reprinting quite a few of these Ornament Collection booklets because, surprisingly, shops are still, and my distributors are still ordering them, so that's wonderful. But there are quite a few people who are doing like an ornament of the month this year in 2024, just so that at the end of the year they're doing 1 or 2 a month. They have a collection at the end of the year for themselves. I've heard several Flosstubers talk about that, and these are quite easy to stitch. I also released, let's see, did this come out? Let me look. I think it did. I forgot to write it on my list. I have a series of Seaside Designs, and this is number 8, and this also came out, yes, it came out in March of last year, and I did a egret and a seal, and I have models in this booklet. Each of the booklets in this series have 2 seaside motifs in it. All right, then in August I released Around Britain, which was another, I love doing these. So this one, how do I approach it? I make a list of all the motifs that would fall in the category of British icons. So we have the flag and the bridge and the bus and the little phone booth and Big Ben. This is the cipher for the King Charles, a swan, an umbrella, a ship, a lion. So it was really fun. I had this long list, and then I charted them and figured out how to get them all together. So this particular design is finished on a wooden disc that I carry that's made by the Bee Company in France. And this is what the booklet looks like. This particular model has been stitched over 2 on a 36 count linen, and then I love stitching the same design over 1, so I did it as an ornament. And this is Around Britain, stitched on 28 over 1 with just 1 ply of floss. And I think I got these little wooden discs from Hobby Lobby last Christmas. So that was another release this past year. And that was actually a request of from someone, because I have Around France, and she thought it'd be fun to do Around Britain, which I agree. So then, let's see, I have 4 or 5 more quick ones to show you. Another release, and this again is going to show you, this is the antique sampler that I purchased, the Hannah's Bluebird sampler, that was used as the inspiration for the Bluebirds of Happiness. And I just thought it was charming. It's a simple, small sampler. It just has a few borders. The lettering, we've never been able to determine exactly what that signifies. If any of you have ideas, that'd be great. This is what the original border in my antique, I reproduced it exactly as I purchased it. And this was the name of a young girl that worked it in 1908. And Hannah's Bluebird sampler looks like this. So, all right. Now, then I just have 4 more to show you from last year. So, as you know, I love doing Christmas designs. And I decided, and I have a large series called Sing a Song, which are 15 different stocking designs, and they all feature a hymn or a Christmas carol. And I decided to switch things up a bit this year and do stockings that were a little different, that might appeal to stitchers. So this also, when I was telling you about what are the most popular from this past year, the sampler stocking falls into that category. That has done very, very well. I think it appeals to sampler lovers, of course. I did a stitcher's stocking with all the little stitching motifs. I did a Danish stocking. And then lastly, I did a Bristol stocking based on the Bristol samplers from England. So those were fun to do, and they've done well too. So that is kind of a recap of what I did in 2023. Speaking of 2024, I am hard at work. I have to move things out of the way here to make room for the next segment. I'm hard at work on the designs for Nashville. All but one are stitched. Most of them are at the finishers or framers. I am busy getting my timeline for Nashville, which is very tricky because it will be here before we know it. And I get very nervous about that timeline because it comes so quickly. So I'm going to pull a couple of samplers here that are not from last year. They're from probably years ago. But when I decided to do my pink theme today and red, it's because Valentine's is coming up and we have this new baby girl in the family. So I just have 5 designs to show you. So this is the one I talked about that was in Jo Florence's picture. She did the Birds and Berries sampler, which is a fun red sampler to do. And the booklet looks like this. Let's see, another sampler that I want to show you that falls into the pink and red category is an Elegant Alphabet. And this was released, I think, 2 years ago. Yes, it was. So as you know, I love alphabets, I love antique motifs, and that is what makes up this Elegant Alphabet. Let's look at what it is stitched on. I stitched it on a 32 count Belfast linen, a Winter Moon, which is a nice neutral. And let's look at, sometimes my little booklets are deceiving. Sometimes they're like a triple booklet. This one happens to open up all the way because the chart, I have to put this down. Can't get it open without 2 hands here. I want to look up the colors that I used. So it was stitched all in one color. I stitched it in strawberry, which was a Romy's Creation fiber. And if you're not familiar with her fibers, they are gorgeous. She is from Italy, and she has a beautiful line. Actually, the color in her line that I used is called Tropical Sunset. And then I put a DMC equivalent. So I also decided to do 2 smalls out of this one. So I took the, I can't balance, I need a helper. So I took several of the motifs out of the Elegant Alphabet sampler, and I took the little bird with the envelope, which would make a darling Valentine's gift. And then I also did a tiny scissor fob and chose the little bird with the flowers, or the leaves next to him or her. And that was just finished as a little scissor fob. So it's fun to look at these designs and think about, Kim from Contented Stitcher often does this. She'll find a part of a sampler that she loves, and she doesn't necessarily stitch the whole thing. She might only stitch a portion of it. So, you could figure out like how to do a portion of it, or just the swans, or as I did, choose the bird or the little bird with the letter. Any of those motifs would just make darling Valentine patterns. And that's kind of what I was thinking when I was working on my theme for today. So I have, excuse the noise here, I have 3 more to show you. And this was done actually quite a while ago, 2016. So it's 8 years ago. This is called Floral Alphabet. And I just love this one because it's so graceful. And I've seen it done in other colors other than pink. This was stitched, I'll show you the booklet, on a 32 count Belfast antique ivory over 2. And this is a frame from Classic Colorworks. They have a frame division. So that's another one that falls into the red category. And I have two more to show you. So this actually sits in my office in a chair because it's just such a comfy little pillow against your back. This is called the Rose Motif Sampler. Let's see if I can balance this. I used some old linens that I had purchased, toweling, to do the finishing on this. Just added some buttons along the edge. And that Rose Motif Sampler also is, it's really old. It's 11 years old. It's interesting to me. When I go to market, I think I've told you this before, and you can understand this. The shop owners are coming in, and they're coming in to see what's new. And which is fine. That's what they want. They want to get new products into their store so that you will come and see them. But when I talk to individuals like all of you, you really don't care if the design is, 15 years old or new. You're choosing designs based on what you love. And so I think that's why it's fun to make these floss tubes, because I'm picking up new viewers almost every time who say, oh, I just came across you by chance, and they really like the design. So that's why I like to show some of the older ones. So this was stitched on I can't remember if I told you this, I'm kind of off on a tangent. This is stitched on a 32 count Belfast linen cream, and it was stitched over 2. So I have one more to show you in our pink and red category, and it also fits a bit with Valentine's Day, and that is Love in the Round. So Love in the Round looks like this. Let's see, it's up straight here, and we've got swans and hearts and the Eiffel Tower and a letter with a heart on it, and the booklet for that looks like this. And I'm sure I did 2 models of this. I always like to do a model over 2 and a model over 1. This was stitched on a 32 count Belfast baby pink linen. And then I don't think I brought the other one up here, upstairs for you to see. But let's see if I can show you. Yeah, this is fine. I stitched it also over 1, and you can see it's the lid of a jar. This one that I just showed to you is actually also a lid from a jar that was purchased from Hobby Lobby. It just makes, it's easy because it's got a wooden base and it sits nicely as the lid for finishing. So that wraps up my designs that I wanted to show you today. I have a couple other things, and then we'll be on our way, and I'll see you hopefully in 2 weeks. So I always like to do a shop of the week, and shops to me are the key component of our industry. If we didn't have them, we wouldn't have all these wonderful fibers and fabrics and patterns, and I know they work so hard to make their shops a success. So the one that I'm featuring today is in Minnetonka, Minnesota. It's Stitchville, USA. I'll put this in my notes below. You can see her address is 12945 Ridgedale Drive, Minnetonka. Debbie is the owner. She has a fabulous shop. I have not been to her shop, but I see her at market. I've seen pictures of it. She carries everything. So if you're on the hunt for a fiber, a fabric, a pattern, please contact Debbie at Stitchville. And she is on my automatic, so she's good about, carrying my patterns. Now, I always like to go through the comments from the last video, and I use a random number generator, and I pick out 3 names, and I'm going to announce the names, and if you hear your name announced, please email me. That's the best way to reach me. I'll talk about that in a minute. And you can choose any of the designs that I have shown today in today's video as a prize, and I'll send it to you. So my first winner today is C as in cat, C Lynn, Lynne. My second winner today is Carol B, 8296. And our third winner today is Pat Quilt B77. So I hope you all happen to tune in and listen and win a prize. Now, how to contact me. Email is the best. Messages really get lost. Some of my devices, I don't pick them up on. So my email is judy@jbwdesigns.com. My website is jbwdesigns.com. I carry some of my older patterns on the website. There's a heading under the picture on the front, and it has the titles. There is a heading called Shop, and that has titles in it, older titles that are for sale. My Friends of JBW Designs Facebook page, you have to join that, but it's very easy. I get notifications every day from new people who want to join, and if you fill out one or two of the answers, you're in. So I always like to end my videos with a little quotation, and this one, I don't know where I got it from, but it was actually in my notes for today's video. So if you have a quotation you think I should use, let me know. The one today is, an act of kindness can change someone's life. And I just love that. So go out today and do something nice for someone who doesn't expect it. And they will be so grateful. And you will feel so good about that. So thank you, dear friends. And I appreciate all of you taking the time to watch. Hopefully I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.